Welcome to the Waiting Warriors podcast. As loved ones of first responders and military personnel, we often face life situations and challenges that many others don't experience. And while each of us and our experiences are unique, together we can learn from one another and become stronger in this journey of life. Now let's step out of mediocrity. It's time to thrive. Hi, Waiting Warriors. It's Michelle, and today's guest this is going to be a very interesting topic, I feel like, because we often talk about things on the podcast that are, what we're striving for and trying to kind of beat the odds and make our families work and all that kind of stuff. And this topic is something that I always hear people say cannot be done as a military family. So I'm super interested and curious of what is going to happen with this conversation. Christal, welcome to the show, Christal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Christal is an Army wife of 19 years. She works for a nonprofit called Clement Arts that uses the gospel and arts to raise awareness and support for foster care and adoption. She has 3 biological children and 1 foster daughter currently in the home. But in the last 3 years, they've had 12 foster children in and out of the home. So, Christal, my first question is I want to just say, how do you do that? But let's scoot back a little bit.
Yes.
And talk about how did you start with this foster care journey?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So my husband and we, like a lot of military families, we actually knew each other in junior high and started dating in high school, and got married very early in his military career. And so it was something that we had already kind of talked about early on in the marriage, and kind of the same thing, like you said, we were always told, I guess maybe not even told, but just assumed that we couldn't foster while he was in the military. And so years kind of passed, and it was just something that we always kept thinking about. It was always in the back of our mind. And we moved to our current duty station, and we had just got here and went to a church, and somebody got up and was talking about how there was a huge need in our community. And I just felt like, okay, well, maybe we should just at least find out more about it and if it's even possible to do as a foster family. And so we went to this orientation event that they had, and they said, yeah, absolutely, you can do it as a military family. And I was like, well, I wish I would have known this 18 years ago, So so we just sort of started taking those steps and did all the process like you normally would do. And so here we are. Yeah.
Here you are. But now you've had 12 kids, but you also it's become your career. It's become your work.
Yes.
How do you, my first question, because this is the question that we've had as a couple, right? How the military life demands so much.
Yes.
And it demands, flexibility and patience, but also just you have to be ready and able to just pick up and move when they say so.
Yes.
So how does that work when you're trying to provide stability and love for kids who need, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the conversations I've had with my husband, and also just like myself, it's I can't give these kids what they need when we aren't necessarily stable, when my husband's in and out of the house, when my husband's schedule is terrible, or
for sure. And so there's kind of a lot of parts to just that one question. So I'll say this, as far as an agency or something like that would be concerned, they actually consider military families to be stable, which when they told me that, I was like, you must not know us very well. But they said no, because we know that you at least will be in one spot for X amount of time, typically, So you can come to a duty station and say, I'll more than likely be here for 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case may be. So they say, okay, we have that time frame, and they know that. So in some sense, you kind of know what you're working with, at least. The other part of that is that I would say, before I got into all of this, military spouses in general were kind of the most resilient people that I knew, and just military families. And like you said, we kind of deal with hardships, and we deal with being flexible, and we deal with all these things that are very unique to our service member and what they do. And so now being on this other side where we have foster children and we're dealing with children that are in care, we're seeing how similar we actually really are. So they are incredibly resilient. And just some of the parallels there of, for example, my children having to deal with deployments where, their father was away for an extended period of time and they had to worry about his safety and if he was coming home, and keep that bond there while he was out of the home. That's something that a child in foster care deals with. They worry about their parents when they're not with them. They worry about whether or not they will see them again. They worry about all these things and try to keep that bond intact so that hopefully unification can happen. So I think in some ways it really equips us in ways that other people might not truly understand or have had experience with, to be able to be a better support for the children that are coming into our care. And then as far as just the stability part of that, I will say we had a sibling group that came into our care. They were our first sibling group. And in the first year that they had been placed in foster care, they had moved 4 different times. So when they came to us, we were their 5th move in a year. And that wasn't because it was military families that they were with. It was just because they had really difficult behaviors. They had some where, excuse me, the people they were with got pregnant, and so it just wasn't working. So for whatever reason, they ended up moving, that many times. So when I started thinking about that, and I said, okay, well, I know that we can at least provide stability and love and a safe place for the 2 years that we thought we were going to be here at that time. I said, well, that's 2 years that I'm giving them a safe, loving, stable home, where they might not have had that elsewhere. So it is tricky. It's a little bit hard to navigate, but it's definitely doable. So
it's incredible because as you say it, it sounds like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like that, especially the part where we have so many similarities to them. Like who better to help these kids than people who are learning how to deal with hard things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We can empathize so much more. We can, hopefully we can coach them through things if we've been able to coach ourselves through things.
Absolutely.
It's like a duh moment for me.
It really took me a long time to see that too. And I think it wasn't until we were in the middle of it, I was like, oh, I've done this before with my kids. I've helped them through some of these things. And so it really was an aha moment for me as well, to be like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm not going to totally screw them up. So so it's good.
We don't want to just screw them up.
Yeah.
So there's a company that I've worked with that their a huge part of their mission is foster care. It's Mascara Beauty, and they the owners have been foster parents and adopted, and they created this movie that I think everybody should go watch. And now I'm totally blanking on what the name is, but it's about how the love that you can offer matters. Because I know another thing that we've thought of is well, if we're only going to have them for a short amount of time, what difference can we even do? Well, maybe we'll start with that question. How have those timeframes looked? You've had 12 kids in 3 years. It's not what is the average time that you have had them?
Yeah. So that really has varied tremendously, and it really does, case by case and child by child. So we've had some children as few as 2 to 3 days, and our longest placement, we had a sibling set for 2 years. So, and everywhere in between there. So there are, lots of things that kind of go into what that looks like. I'll just say very quickly, in foster care, when a child is removed from their family, that family is given a case plan, and they're told, whatever you need to do to kind of improve so that your children can come back in the home. So whether that's parenting classes or maybe a rehab thing or something like that, they're given X amount of time to do that. So as long as the parents are working and meeting those goals that the court has set for them, then the children will go back and reunify with them. So that really just depends on if they're working that case plan, how long it takes them to work that, what the what the level of trauma or abuse or whatever it is that took them out of the home to begin with. And then there are different like levels, I guess, of foster care too. So you can do what would be kind of a traditional, what you consider a foster parent, which now they try to call it a partnership parent because they really want you to partner with the biological family and work to reunify and build that connection and bond and maintain that. But you can also do what you call respite foster care. So you go through the exact same process to become a foster parent, but then you only take children for a maximum of 2 weeks at a time. And these children are essentially coming to you from another foster family, and say that foster family is going on vacation or, you know, they just need a break. Then the children will come to you and you're essentially babysitting them, but you're still technically a foster parent and you're keeping them for just that short period of time. So for that, you're still helping children who are in foster care. You're still making an impact. You're helping support a foster family who is maybe doing this on a larger scale, you know, day to day. So there are lots of kind of ways to be involved that don't require you to just be a foster parent. So I think that's important. I don't think people realize how much, I don't know, opportunity there is to help, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of different options.
Yeah.
So what do you say to somebody who like, you know, cares about children and hates that there are kids that are suffering out there, but doesn't feel like they can make an impact?
I would say anybody can make an impact, really. I will say, like, for sure, I don't think that everybody is called to be a foster parent, just like not everybody is called to join the military. It's something that you need to feel led to do and have a heart and a desire for that. But just because you can't be a foster parent doesn't mean that you can't do something. So, whether you're just mentoring that child, whether you're taking a foster family a meal, like anybody can do something to impact a child and to show them love and to show them that there's another person that is caring about them and their well-being. So there's just so many ways to do that without having to take a child in your home. And for those who think like, maybe I'm just not equipped or I don't know if I can handle it. I mean, I think it just is like any other parenting, you know, it's scary and sometimes you think like, I don't know if I can do this, but, I would say if there's that hesitation of just, I have this desire, but I'm not sure if I'm qualified, I would say just go for it, like try it and see, you know, because really they're just like any other child in that sense that they really just need love and they just need somebody that is looking out for them and helping them to learn how to maybe do these things that they weren't taught in a healthy home environment. You know, as simple as teaching them to make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwich, just those kind of basic life skills that sometimes they don't get. So you don't have to, you know, be super spectacular or have a, you know, a degree in whatever. Like it's really just having a heart and a passion to make some kind of a difference, a positive difference in their lives.
I love that, like the heart and the passion, because the video that I was talking about, it like depicts a particular kid's experience with one family, and wasn't there for a super long amount of time, but like it just shows how the love from that one family just mattered. And like maybe it's called Love Is Never Wasted. Something like that. Yeah. But I rewatched it the other day, just thinking about the conversation that we were going to be having. And I like realized how similar, once again, another similarity between military life and fostering is that like we are only in a duty station for a few years, right?
Yes.
And we could just think, well, we're going to be leaving relatively soon, or our neighbor's going to be leaving relatively soon. So there's no point in spending a ton of time and energy in a relationship, right? Because it's not going to last forever. Just like you could think of that with fostering. It's like, well, what's the point? They're not going to be here forever. Like, why invest my heart? But I've come to understand with military life that every single relationship is so valuable and like builds your heart and just buoys up your soul for all of the hard things that come from life.
Yes.
And I think if we're willing to give that love to these kids, that not only helps them and buoys them, but it also buoys us. Even though, I don't know, maybe other listeners don't feel this way, but like one of my hesitancies with fostering care is like, I have to love somebody, but then I have to give them away. Like that's,
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to give them away.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love just that analogy of the neighboring and having those friendships, because that's 100% what it is, knowing that for whatever time that you can have that relationship, that it's going to impact your life in a positive way. And I will say, like, I mean, that really is kind of the number one fear of a lot of people, is they say, oh, like, I couldn't love a child and have a child in my home only to give them back or to give them away. And that was probably one of the biggest things that held me back. For a very long time. Once we found out that we could foster, I thought I couldn't do that. Like, I love children. And I just can't see myself doing that. And I finally realized that as I was kind of thinking through that and processing that on my own, everything was very much about me, like very I focused. And I said, I can't give this child up. I can't, have my heart broken. I can't do this. And I started thinking, here's this child, and I'm thinking so much about myself. I'm not really thinking about them. And so this child who has left their home and left everything that they've known and everything that they love and everything that's familiar to them, if I can provide them, again, a safe home and a stable environment and love on them for whatever amount of time, then maybe I'm okay to get my heart broken in order to provide for them just that little bit of stability and that little bit of love and that little bit of knowing that they're somewhere safe. And so when I kind of flipped the script on that and started thinking about the child more than myself, is when I really was able to come to terms with that and say, okay, like, I can get my heart broken, and I have got my heart broken. Like, it is not easy to say goodbye to these children and to have a little piece of your heart taken with them each time. And but at the same time, it has been incredibly meaningful, and it has changed our lives for the better. And while it has been incredibly difficult, it's also one of the best decisions that we've made, and it's worth getting your heart broken for a little bit.
Oh man. So how it's a tender subject, and it
is.
Oh man, getting choked up. Like, I just hate thinking about kids in particular, like suffering and having a hard time. And I don't know, I think so often we think like, I just want to take all the babies and I just want to help everybody. But yet this is something that is relatively simple that we could do. Like or I guess not simple, but it's an opportunity that is available for us to actually do something and impact our community and help people for good. And yet it's a program that is always needing more help.
Absolutely.
Like it doesn't seem like people are jumping for the opportunity. And yet we say, I just want to help people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's easier to say, like, this is a need, and then it's harder to actually, like, step into that need for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I will say, I mean, even, where we're currently at, our state is one of the leading states as far as having available foster homes. And they've doubled from 2018 to 2019. They doubled the amount of foster parents and foster homes that were available. So right now there are like 7,500 foster homes available, which is awesome. But then when you think about, there are 15,000 children in our state alone that need a foster home, like, it doesn't even come close. So, there's a constant need for more families to step up and more foster homes to become available. And it's not just our state, like, it is nationwide. The numbers are insane when you see them. So.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the questions with, like, not, I guess, logistics, but like military, like, how does that work? Yes, military families are, like, apparently more stable.
I know, right? Yeah. I don't know. I always feel bad saying that. So I'm like, I don't know if that's actually, but like, I mean, I see what they're saying.
Yeah. Like, we are solid people, I guess, and we're going to be here for a certain amount of time because the government said so. But like, how has that been? I guess we don't have to go in like the how-tos. Maybe people can reach out if they have specific questions, but like, I think of like logistics of if you're going to live on base, then they have to be a dependent. Like, can you live on base and be a
Yes.
foster parent? Like,
Yep.
I guess so. Yeah, the question
Yeah.
is yes.
So that's kind of logistic part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can they go to the DoD schools or, I don't know. Can you think of other logistics? Like, have there been any hiccups with that? Like, specifically, like if you're living on base, because I feel like that's where it would get a little bit
a little tricky. Yes, for sure. And I will say that was probably one of the hardest things for us because we were really, I think, one of the first military foster families. At least from my understanding, that started fostering while we lived on post. And so when we would go to housing, they'd be like, we're not really sure what to do. And so it would take, several days for them to try to call around and figure things out. And I would tell them, hey, look, like our goal is to get more foster parents here. So y'all better like figure out what you're doing. So it's easier for the next people. So I felt like we were kind of guinea pigs in a lot of ways. But everybody was super supportive. I will say that, at least for our duty station. People were very ready to give us the answers that we needed and to help us figure out what we needed. So it can be difficult, especially if there aren't a lot of foster families already in your community to kind of pave that way, but it is possible. And so we fostered while we lived on post. The children that we had in our care were able to go to our DoD schools. So it did require some waivers. It requires you to get some paperwork from, the state agency that you're fostering through. And, we had to go get the soldier, my husband, he's an active duty member. So he had to have his commander sign off on some things, just saying that we were responsible for the children if there were any damage that they were, did on post kind of thing. So we didn't even have to, for them to just live on post, they don't actually even have to become dependents. You just get a waiver from housing saying that they can stay with you on post. For them to attend a DoD school, we did have to go to the process to enroll them in tiers as our dependents. And so there are a lot of, specific paperwork. I have all the numbers written down somewhere if somebody actually wanted them, but have forms to turn in and those kinds of things. So it is doable. It is a little bit, excuse me, of a headache, but it is possible for sure.
Mm-hmm. Have you been a foster parent off post as well?
Yes. So we actually just moved off post last summer. So almost a full year now that we've been off post. And so we've been able to experience both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it easier or, not really a big deal?
I mean, it was easier in the sense that we didn't have to do extra paperwork to get them into school. We didn't have to get extra waivers, because now they're attending a school off post. And so it's just as easy as, taking in and filling out the registration papers and stuff. Whereas on post, we had to do a lot more faxing of paperwork and a lot more signatures. And so it just took a little bit more time and effort, I would say, to live on post and do it. But it's not impossible. It is easier and it's less steps when you are off post. So It's just, yeah.
And then you said you have like all the form. Have you like written out the process of doing it?
Yeah. So we found when we first started this, I was like, trying to find all these blogs and look through like just for information. Cause at that time, we didn't really know anything. And so I was trying to figure out not just about foster care in general, but then about fostering as a military family. And I really couldn't find a lot of resources. And so, I started a page called Foster Strong for our community here. And so I started just writing down everything as we would go through it. And I started blogging, each step of the way saying like, this is what we needed and this is what we did. And I'd go back and edit it as we needed more things. And so that group has grown, which has been amazing to see. And as we're growing, there are several more foster families now that foster on post here. And we have some support groups that we've put in place. And so we actually have what we call care teams that surround the foster families that are on post, and they take them a meal each week and they babysit for them. And so this has become really a solid community of foster parents and foster support that is very military specific. And we had one of our members actually recently PCS'd to New York to Fort Drum. And so she started a chapter there as well. So I love that, like, as people are learning about it here and becoming involved, and they're taking that with them and starting their own chapters. And I just think that's incredible. So
that is incredible. Like that is so, it's just incredible that you've created a system really that works, that not takes care of itself, but gets the community involved.
Yeah.
So if people want to get involved where they are, like, do they just Google, like helping foster care families in our area? Like if
Yeah, I mean, for our group
Because
specifically,
I'll ask in
you
a second
could
if
just
they
put in the
want to
name and it would come up
specifically foster, but what
for
if
our
they just want
community.
to support foster
Like I said,
families? Do you
we are
just like
growing. There are more and more
Google
people that
for
are
your
doing that
group,
in different areas and stuff. So I would say Googling is probably the first start. And then really if you can connect with any sort of, there are some like military specific foster support groups on Facebook and things. So if you kind of plugged into one of them, a lot of times people in there can, point you to a specific group just for supporting in different areas. And so I would say, yeah, Facebook, Googling those kinds of things and just sort of researching that. There's not really like one spot to go to say, oh, if I'm going to this area, like here's how I can get involved in this area. But with a little bit of research, I think you could find something wherever you are or start something. I mean, that's the other, we have some really great people who have said, oh, there's nothing here.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to create a foster closet where we take, clothing donations and help children in care. I'm going to start this meal train kind of thing, or, so I would say if you can't find something, then, I mean, that's another great way to plug in and make a difference. So
that's awesome. Because like right now we're in like the baby phase and I just don't, it just doesn't seem feasible right now. But I love that I can still do something because there are so many kids, guys. If you do not know the numbers, like just Google it real fast. Like there are so many kids who just need some love and need some help. And there are just families who I think a lot of times when people think of foster care, they think of like the really, really terrible, I don't know, just like the bad stereotypes in it that kids, kids that are totally far off the path that, and people are like, oh, I just, I don't want that in my home or I don't want that influencing their family or whatever. But like that's not really the case. And it's just people who are having a hard time and they're doing their best, but sometimes they just don't know how to do better. And this is a way that we can show love, like just show love and care for our community. And I really, really love that. If people do have questions, just in general about fostering, where should they go? Like what is the starting?
Yeah, for that, you would just kind of Google, child welfare agency for whatever your area is, like put in your zip code. Each state is different. So it's either like going to be, what they call DFACS, which is Department of Family and Children Services, or CPS, which is Child Protective Services. So whatever your specific agency is that deals with family and children for your community, that's where you would start. And they usually will have, their state website or whatever that will have information on like an orientation and just how to get more information about fostering in general. That's usually all accessible online. Yeah.
And then what are some of your thoughts on like you're a military spouse, you and your family are dealing with all of these hard things with military life and just the stressors and stuff. And yet you've added something that has been difficult. How have you been able to handle all that and process everything? And
no, that's a great question. Like it's hard, and there were days where we questioned, like, what have we gotten ourselves into? Like, why did we do this to ourselves? Because yes, you already have some very specific hardships and things that you deal with as a military family, and then, like you said, you're bringing these children in that are coming from hard places and who have their own trauma and their own things that they're working through. And so it seems counterproductive to combine those two things together. But I think having support of some kind is essential. There are statistics that will say that foster families will quit after either the first year or the first placement that they have. 50% of them will quit if they don't have support. However, for those families who have support wrapped around them, 80% of them will continue on and they'll foster longer, they'll foster stronger. So I think it's imperative that you join some sort of, like for us, our faith, our church is a huge part of that for us. But then just our community in general, we've really plugged in and we have this group of people that are our village and that who help us, and just being authentic with them and real with them and saying, hey, this is a really hard day. Like I need some help. And I think as just a military spouse, I already over the years had gotten to that place where I was able to do that in our military life and say like, hey, this is really hard. We're going through something that's really difficult and I need some help and I need some support, and being just real and putting it out there. And so we just kind of continue that into this fostering side of things too, and just telling people, and being real and saying, this is messy and this is hard and this is scary and, all these other things, and just asking for help and being willing to accept help. I think that's kind of the key there, is just being willing to ask and receive help.
Oh man. Yeah, that's like super solid advice, whether you're going to foster or not. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just, it is hard. It's worth it, but it's hard. And just because like, you just don't have to do it alone. I don't know why we always think we do, but you just don't have to do it alone. Oh man. So last question, as a fostering military wife, what is your key to thriving?
Well, I would say kind of what we just said, community, really. I'd say not waiting for others to come to you, and invite you in. Like, that's always great when that happens, but being intentional about it, surrounding yourself with positive people who will say, like, I know this is hard, but you can do this, that will lift you up. Just being intentional about making that community and building that community, I think is really the key to thriving.
I love it. Thank you so much, Christal.
If
somebody wants to connect with you, I know you have these like awesome resource of all these things written down, the process and all that. What's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah. I'm happy to give my email address. That's probably the easiest way. The group that we have, is specific to our installation here. So if they are local to our community, then they're welcome to reach out that way. Otherwise, my email address is Christal@Clement-Arts.org. And so
I'll put that in the show notes if people are like worried about some spelling or any of that.
Yes.
Guys,
yeah, because it's a little tricky. Yep.
Guys, just spend a minute and like research about the foster care system. I'm not saying everybody should be foster parents, because like you said, not everybody should, but just research and like, so you are aware of what is going on in your community. And then I would like honestly consider what is something you could do, even if it's just one time, like one meal you could take to a foster family, one clothing drive you could do, like, or just buying some clothes. Like you can do something. So just think about that. Serve your community. I know it is personally for me, like there have been, the times where I'm going through the hardest stuff and I just feel so stuck and so lost. When I serve in those moments, that's what always gets me out of it. So just, I don't know, just challenge you to look outward and at the very least become aware. So Christal, thank you so much. Guys, go do that. Reach out to Christal if you have any questions. And thank you again, Christal, so much. And guys, just remember, just because it's hard doesn't mean it has to be miserable. And I think service is how we can bring that joy back in the hard things. You guys have a great week. Hey friends, if you are loving the content here and want some more Waiting Warrior action, check us out at Instagram or Facebook. The handle is The Waiting Warrior, no S, or check out the website, thewaitingwarriors.com. And make sure you get on our mail list. We have some really awesome things coming up. Have a great day.